So Lean Into Me is about believing in ourselves and believing that as women we can have any ambition we want and that we can achieve it. Not letting the stereotypes, not letting the myths of what women can and can't do hold us back, but instead believing that anything we want to do is within our reach. So I wrote Lean In because I want to help change the conversation around women from what we can't do to what we can. Because despite all the progress women have made, we are nowhere close to having our share of the leadership roles in any industry, in any government, anywhere in the world. And what that means is that when the decisions are made that impact our world, from the PTA meeting to the town hall to the boardroom, women's voices are not equally heard. And I do talk in the book about a leadership ambition gap, and it's a great question, and I'm going to be super clear about what I don't mean and what I do mean. Here's what I don't mean. I do not mean that there are not individual women who are as ambitious as any man, because of course there are. And I also don't mean that there's only one form of ambition. Lots of people have lots of different ambitions, and what we want to do in life has to be determined by us. We all get our own dreams and our own wishes to fulfill them. But here's what I do mean, and I want to say it unapologetically and unequivocally, because the data on this is super clear, which is that starting in junior high, if you ask boys and girls, do you want to lead? Do you want to be the president of your junior high school class? Do you want to be the president of your club in college? Do you want to be the head of the division you are working in when you graduate? Do you want to run for office? At every level, at every stage, more men than women, more boys than girls say yes to those questions. And so we do not aspire to lead at the same rate boys do. And that's not really surprising, because we're socialized totally differently. At my wedding, my brother and sister got on, to the front of the room, and they said hi to give a toast. We're Sheryl's younger brother and sister, David and Michelle. But we're not really Sheryl's younger brother and sister. We're really her first employees. Employee 1 and employee 2. Because Sheryl never really played as a child. She just organized other children's play. And it's funny, right? You're all laughing, I laughed. But there's something not funny about that joke. Because to this day, we call our little girls bossy. And we do not call little boys bossy. And that's because boys are expected to lead, girls are not. And until we change that, we will continue to have a leadership ambition gap, and we will continue to have men running the world.
Fear is at the root of so many barriers that women face. You write, fear of not being liked, fear of making the wrong choice, fear of drawing negative attention, fear of overreaching, fear of being judged, fear of failure, and the holy trinity of fear, the fear of being a bad mother, wife, daughter. Now, I thought your reaction to making the Forbes list of the most powerful women in the world was a powerful illustration of this. So, tell us how you reacted.
And I thought, that's ridiculous. And not just was that ridiculous, but I was embarrassed. So as, at Facebook, people would come up and congratulate me, and I would say, shh, don't tell anyone. And then, I would call my sister and be like, get that off your Facebook page, take it down. And I did this so often that Camille Hart, my long-term assistant who's here with me tonight, pulled me into a conference room. She only does that when I've really messed up. She's like, we need to talk. And she sat me down, she goes, you are handling this terribly. You are showing everyone how uncomfortable you are and how insecure you are about this. And what the data shows is that success and likability are positively correlated for men and negatively correlated for women. And what that means, and it's worth taking a big deep breath and thinking about this, is that as men get more successful, they are better liked by men and by women alike. And as women get more successful, they are less liked by men and women. And as a man, I think I would have been proud to be on the list, but as a woman, success, power, we're not comfortable with any of this, and there's a reason we're not comfortable with this, which is that it causes us to be disliked. And part of the premise of Lean In is that if we understand this, if we acknowledge it, we can change it. So the likability penalty women face has been proven over and over again in multiple studies. One of those studies was the Howard Heidi Roizen case. There's a Harvard Business School case on a woman named Heidi Roizen. She uses her network to become a very powerful venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, and that's what the case is about. And so a number of years ago, 2 professors changed that case to the name Howard Roizen, and they handed it out to business school students. And they had them read it, and they had them rate Howard and Heidi. And it turned out that like both Howard and Heidi were very competent at equal levels, which is good. But Howard, he's a great guy. You want to work for him, you trust him, you want to spend the weekends with him. Heidi, she's a little out for herself. She's a little political. You don't trust her and you don't want to work with her. And that is what a lot of women experience. So I say this in audiences all the time, but you know, how many women in this room have been told at work that you were too aggressive, too assertive? Anyone? Yeah. Okay. How many men in this room have been told at work that you were too aggressive or too assertive? Raise your hand. No, wait. Go ahead. Good. I think the striking thing about what's going on the Marissa issue at Yahoo is that it shows what we already know. There are too few women running companies. What she did, if a man did it, there would not be a single headline. And what happens is that there are so few women. There are 21 women running the Fortune 500. 21 out of the top 500 executives in this country. I am not one of them. The top CEOs, the top 500. There are 21 women. That's less than 5%. There is not a single country in the world that has 5% of its top companies run by women. Not one in the world. And so Marissa's experience is exactly what we all know as senior women, which is there are so few of us. You can take the action of any one woman and stereotype everyone to that action. Try doing that to men. A male CEO does something, and now we're going to talk about all men CEOs.
So
not possible.
There's so many of them.
Because there are so many of them, they get to be individuals. And what I think we're fighting for is equal opportunity, equal encouragement, and the opportunities to just be ourselves, not to represent an entire gender. Another example, Marissa was chosen to be the CEO of Yahoo when she was about to have a child. How many men do you think became CEO of something when they were about to have a child? No one knows. I've talked to so many people. Someone go find out. It's not possible to find out. And therein lies the problem for women. I talk in the book about bringing your whole self to work. I fundamentally don't believe that we can be like these kind of automaton work people Monday to Friday, 9 to 6. And then we can be whole people the rest of the time. And I think that a lot of power and ability to really motivate people comes from being authentic and human. Just who we are, with all of our shortcomings and faults and real emotions. Most of our decisions as human beings are made at an emotional level. And I think admitting that gives us a lot of freedom to really understand each other. And I think it's been one of the things I've tried to do as a manager and leader. I have said before I wrote the book publicly and in the book as well that I've cried at work. I always say, not a best practice. No one's going to write 7, habits of effective people if they're crying. If you want to raise, crying is not thing number 1 on my list for what you should do. But it's happened. And then after it happened, I spent all of this time worrying about the fact that it happened, and I talk about it because I figure the next woman who does it, I don't want her to spend any time worrying about it. Because we're human, and it's okay to be human. What would you do if you weren't afraid? What I would do if I wasn't afraid is write a book on women. And I asked myself that question a couple of years ago, and that was the answer. If I wasn't afraid, I was going to speak out more as a woman on behalf of women, and I did. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. And so I would say as women, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And then as men, leaning in is about all of us leaning in together. This is about equal partnership in the home. This is about what happens to our kids when we're engaged fathers. And this is about being willing to talk about the things we don't talk about in the workforce. And you know, if every man here can think of one thing that they can address they haven't addressed before, the world changes just a little bit.
Thank you, Sheryl Sandberg, for being
Thank you, guys.